Daf Nun Tes Amud Beis will begin Daf Nun Tes Amud Aleph, the fifth wide line at the two dots. Sheyarei Hadam Hayeshefech Hayesaid Ma'aravi Shel Mizbeach HaChitzayin. There are remnants of the blood after he did it Hazois in the Heichal. Then he comes out and he comes into the Azora and he pours the remnants of the blood on the western base of the Mizbeach HaChitzayin, on the outer Mizbeach. How do we know that? The Omar Kra, the Pasuk says, "Ve'es kol adama par yishpa." It says all of the blood of the par he pours. It says the Pasuk says he pours it on the base of the Mizbeach asher Pesach oil moed. That the Pesach, the base of the Mizbeach that is facing the oil moed. So the base of the Mizbeach that's facing the oil moed is the westerly side. As he comes out of the out of the entrance, he's going from west to east. The base of the Mizbeach, he encounters the west side of the Mizbeach. The west side of the Mizbeach, as he's going from west to east, the east side is here, the west side, so that's where he pours it. So it's mashma from Rashi that's the limud, because it mentions that he pours it on the base of the Mizbeach that is facing the Asher Pesach Ha'omayit, and that's the westerly side. But the Gemara Ar Girsa continues and says, V'chi nofik, when he leaves, Bahu Paga Bereisha. When he exits the oil moed, when he exits the Heichal, and he comes out of the Ulam, the first side of the Mizbeach, the side that encounters is the western side, which would be mashma that the reason is ein mavir and ala mitzvahs. In fact, Tosfos points out that therefore loy gar sinan, we're not garis this section of it, because our Gemara is mashma that the limud is from Asher Pesach Ha'omayit, that it's the side of the Mizbeach that's facing the oil moed, which is the westerly side, not because ein mavir and ala mitzvahs. However, he says that on Daf Lav Gimel the parish was because ein mavir and ala mitzvahs. It seems in our Gemara, it's the girsa that we have is a hybrid of the drosha from the pasuk and also from ein mavir and ala mitzvahs. So therefore, Tosfos says not to be geiros v'chi nofik bahu pagi b'reisha. The Mishnah continues, but the remnants of the blood that where the hakrava was on the Mizbeach HaChitzayin, over there the remainder of the blood was poured on not the western side, but the southern side. Not the western side, but the southern side of the Mizbeach. Tan Rabbanan, you say the Mizbeach, the base of the Mizbeach, Zeh you say Draimi. That is the southern base. So this is referring to the case of the chatas of the Nasi. If the Nasi does the Avera, then the remnants are they're poured onto the base of the Mizbeach HaChitzayin. Which base? You say Draimis, the southern base. Al-Timer, you say Draimis, you say the southern, or you say Ma'aravis, or maybe the western base. Amarta, you say Yom Yiriosim in a Kevish, Litziyosim in a Heichal. You should learn out the Yeridim in a Kevish, the Nasi, the Chatas is done on the Mizbeach HaChitzayin. He goes up the Kevish, he does the application of the blood, and then he circles the Mizbeach and comes down the Kevish. He comes down the ramp. The ramp is on the southern side. So therefore, Yelmad Yeridosim in a Kevish, Litziyosim in a Heichal. You learn out when he comes down from the Kevish to when he exits the Heichal. Just like the Yitziyah from the Heichal is b'samach loy. Now over there he does, and when the chatos that he does, the chatos primis that he does inside, there's the application of the blood inside. He does it in the Heichal. He exits. When he leaves the Heichal, he encounters the west side of the Mizbeach. That's b'samach loy, and that's where he does the dam. That's where he pours the dam. So it's b'samach loy. So ve'ezazaz, he said ma'aravi. Which one is that? That's the western one. That's what's in the close proximity. That's what he encounters first. After he does some in a kevesh. So too, you learn out over here when he goes down the kevesh, then he descends the kevesh. B'samachloi, it's on the base which is nearest to him. Now, what the kevesh is in the south. Zeh Yisai Droimi. So therefore, he does the dam, spilling the blood on the Yisai Droimi, on the southern base. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Rishmol says, Zeh Yisai Marovi. He says both the chatas pnimi and the chatas chitzain, both of them is Yisai Marovi. You pour them both on the western side, the western base. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Yomer, Zevi says, Zevizei Yisai Droimi. He says they're both done on Yisai Droimi. Vishlom Rabbi Shmuel, we understand Rabbi Shmuel why he says that, because Rabbi Yilma, it's also Minafurish. He says you learn out what's not mentioned clearly, why from the case that is mentioned clearly. Now, the case of the chatas chitzain, it's not mefurish. It's not clearly mentioned. But the case of the chatas pnimi, it says al pesach or al mayit. That is mefurish. So therefore, just like the chatas pnimi is in the west, here also is to the west. Ella Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai my time. But what is the reason for Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai? Why should he say that both of them are on the south base? Amar Ravashi, he says, Kasavar Pischa b'daram kai. He holds that the entrance to the Heichal was south of the Mizbeach. It was to the south of the Mizbeach. So when he exited the Heichal, what he encountered was the south side, not the west side. He holds they have the Pesach of the Heichal. The Mizbeach was all to the north. So when he came out, when he exited, he did not encounter the west side, he encountered the south side. So therefore, the chatas pnimi was on the south. And similarly, the chatas chitzain was on the south. It was poured on the south base. Tana Beri Shmuel, Beri Shimon Yochai, Zevazei, Side Droimi. So the Tana Beri Shmuel, when they learned in the base medrash of Rav Shimon Yochai, they learned that Rabbi Shmuel and the Tana Beri Shmuel, they learned Zevizei Yisai Droimi. They learned Rabbi Shmuel as agreeing that they were both on the Yisai Droimi. The Simonech, the Simon is Mashchu Agavre Legavre, that they drew him over, a Simon to remember which side it was. They brought over Rabbi Shmuel, the Talmidim Rabbi Shmuel, to their opinion, to Rav Shimon Yochai's opinion that it was in, both of them were in the south. The Mishnah continues, says, the blood of both these, the chatas pnimi and the chitzan, the remnants of the blood drained out in the canal, and it drained out to Nachal Kidron, and was sold to the gardeners for fertilizer. Tan Rabbanan, ma'alim b'damim, there's a din of me'ilah with blood. In blood, it is also a din me'ilah. Divrei Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon. That's what they hold, that there's me'ilah with the dam. With the dam, there is me'ilah. Chacham say there's no me'ilah with dam. On dam, there's no din me'ilah. So ad kan loy pligi elamid rabbanan. So they only argue as far as a din rabbanan. Al midoraisa ein mo'elam behem. But everybody would agree that midoraisa there is no din me'ilah. It's only midrabanan. So, but the Raisa, everyone agrees there's no din me'ilah. So why do we say that that's the case? Because Taisus explains that it must be that what we're dealing here is midrabanan. Because if it was a din daraisa of me'ilah, we would not allow the gardeners to purchase it. Now the gardeners, they can't use the blood. They have to purchase it, but they can purchase it. So it must mean that there's no me'ilah deraisa, because we wouldn't allow them to purchase it if there was a din me'ilah deraisa. So it must mean that it's midrabanan, and therefore we allow them to purchase it. So it's only a machlekes midrabanan, but deraisa there's no me'ilah. There's no me'ilah, as Rashi says. Therefore, since there's no me'ilah, you don't have to pay. If a person did use it, he doesn't have to pay an extra fifth, a chaimish. How do we know that there's no din me'ilah deraisa? Amra ula, amra kra. The pasuk says lachem. The pasuk says ki nefesh habasar badam hi ba'ani nesativ lachem al mizbech lechaper al nafshi sechem ki hadam hu benefesh yichaper. It says that the pasuk says lachem. I have given it to you. I've given the dam to you, meaning that it's yours. It's for your purpose. Shalachemiyah. It's for you, for your use, meaning therefore there's no me'ilah. So that's one limit. The Bay Rabbi Shimon Tana lechaper. The pasuk says that I've given you nasati lechem mizbeach lechaper. It's for the purpose of a kapara. Lechapara nasati v'loy lemila. It's for the purpose of kapara. It only has a purpose for kapara. It's only kodesh for kapara, but not for, doesn't have the kedusha legabe anything else. So therefore, there's no din meal on it. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, he says, Amar Kro, who? It says, the pasuk says, who? It says, Ki hadam hu banefesh yichapir. It is. It remains in its state. Therefore, it's who lifnei kapara, kelachar kapara. It's in the same category. Before kapara and after kapara, it's in the same category. So ma la'achar kapara ein bo mi'ila, just like la'achar kapara, there's no mi'ila, as we'll see in a moment, of lifnei kapara ein bo mi'ila. And so therefore, lifnei kapara, similarly, there's no mi'ila. It's in the same category. So just like after the kapara, after the Kohen did that application of the dam and did the kapara, there's no mi'ila on the dam. After that, lifnei kapara, also there's no mi'ila. Well, granted that we say it's the same category, but maybe just say the opposite. Maybe la'achar kapara kalifnei kapara. Maybe after kapara, it's like before kapara. Ma lifnei kapara yesh bo mi'ila. Just like lifnei kapara, there's mi'ila. Af la'achar kapara yesh bo mi'ila. I should say la'achar kapara, after kapara, also there's mi'ila. Why do you learn it this way? Learn it the other way. So the Gemara says, no, you can't say that way because we don't find anything where the mitzvah is already completed. The Torah mandated to perform a certain mitzvah within, and after you've already performed that mitzvah, that there should be a din of me'ilah. So therefore, la'achar kapara, there is certainly no me'ilah. Therefore, when we say the who, we say it's the same category. Lifnei kapara, also there is no me'ilah. And as Taisus explains, however, we do find cases that lifnei kapara, that in the case of lifnei kapara, there is no mi'ila. So therefore, we can say, and it's logical to say, la'achar kapara, we never find a case, la'achar kapara, there's mi'ila. Here in this case, lifnei kapara, there's no mi'ila. But we do find cases where lifnei kapara, there's no mi'ila. So therefore, you can't say, well, lifnei kapara, there's always mi'ila, so after kapara, there's always mi'ila, because that's not the case. So therefore, we say that there is also no mi'ila, even lifnei kapara. Because in the chadavar shenasis mitzvah semo olam boy. In fact, the more of a law is that we don't find such a case. We're a Trumas Hadesh, and we have that, and then of Trumas Hadesh, and that every morning the Kohen scoops up some of the ashes on the Mizbeach, he removes it from the Mizbeach, and he puts it on the east side of the Mizbeach, we're a Trumas Hadesh, and there's the mitzvah of Trumas Hadesh. And now, after he's already completed the mitzvah of Trumas Hadesh, he's already done the mitzvah, but the pasuk says, "Vahirim esadeshin v'someitz on mizbeach." It has to be placed on mizbeach. It has to say there, you can't take it, you can't use it. So there is a din of milah, even though it's not as mitzvah. More answers b'shum dahave trumas hadeshin ubigdei kahuna shneksuvim abayim keachad. Yes, that's true, but we also have another case of where it's not as mitzvah and there is mi'ilah, and we have a principle. If the Torah tells us two cases that it says Shnei Ksuvim Haboim Kecha to teach us the same principle, then we don't learn out from that. If the Torah meant to learn out that we should learn out with a binyan out from one case to learn if I imply it generally, then Torah would have only written it once. The fact that Torah writes it twice teaches you, in these cases, this is where I say this, but these are exceptions. Do not learn it out otherwise. If it was meant to learn out otherwise, why say two cases? Only say one. Now here we have two cases. We have Trumas Hadeshin, which we just mentioned, that it's Nasas Mitzvah, and therefore it's still Milah. There's also Big Day Kahuna. You also have the case by the begotten of the Kohen Gadol, the Big Day Kahuna that he wears on Yom Kippur, after he performs the Avodah. The Torah says that he says v'hinicham sham, and he leaves them there. He has to leave the clothing there, meaning that they cannot be used. They have to be left there. They cannot be used. So there's milah. So there's another example. So it's Shnei Ksubim, because Mishum Dahavi Trumas Adeshin of Big Day Kuna Shnei Ksubim Boim Keachad, two psukim that teach us the same principle. V'chaysh Chol Shnei Ksubim Boim Keachad Ein Malabdim, and two psukim of Boim Keachad Ein Malabdim, and therefore, generally speaking, therefore we say that once it's Nasas Mitzvah, so there's no Mi'ilah. So after the Kapor of the Dam, there's no Mi'ilah, and then we learn out that beforehand also there's no Mi'ilah. So we'll continue to this Amud, the next Amud, we'll continue this discussion.